Hey everyone, good to see you here today. I thought I'd pop over. Just a short time ago, I got off another podcast interview, this time with a woman in Boise, Idaho, who has a great story to share with us about her journey, and her name is Marnie Henderson, so look for that episode probably later this month. But I wanted to pop over here today. I've challenged myself to go live every day for 10 days to share with everyone some of the things that I've learned so far hosting the Widowed Parent podcast. It's spring break this week, and so I did not do an episode and instead decided to reflect and kind of go back through the interviews and the transcripts of the people that I've talked to and pull out some of the key things that I've learned. And hopefully sharing that with you will be useful. And so, yeah, let me know. So today I'm going to share with you the third thing I've learned. And if you want to skip ahead and read all 10 of them, you can download it at my website, jennylisk.com/top10, and find that there. But in the meantime, I want to tell you about this third thing because I interviewed Dr. Lisa Damour, and she is a psychologist, and she's in Ohio, and she has a private practice, and she is the psychologist at a girls' school, and has written two really, really great books. And a friend of mine actually told me about the first one, and that's how I found out about her. The first one is called Untangled, Guiding Teenage Girls Through the 7 Transitions into Adulthood. And it's interesting because even though I obviously was a teenage girl myself once, I learned so much from the book. I didn't, I guess, really realize developmentally what it is that teenagers, and in particular her focus is on girls, the important developmental tasks of the adolescent years and some of the details of what that looks like. In her book she goes through, so there are things like leaving childhood behind and separating from your parents and learning to take care of yourself and learning to plan for the future. And she's got 7 different developmental strands. And it's quite interesting. She talks about what quote-unquote normal looks like for teenagers, which then, of course, she says normal is all over the map. And so then she goes through each one and says, well, if normal is all over the map, then how do I know what's not normal or when I should be concerned? And then so she calls out for each of those a few examples of what, what parents might be looking for, where they might be concerned. So when I talked to Lisa, and if you want to listen to my whole discussion with her, it's episode 13, and it's at widowedparentpodcast.com. One of the things I asked her, I said, one of the things I hear a lot, and I also wonder about myself, is how do you know if something is a grief issue or if it's a normal teenage issue? And it's really hard to know sometimes. And so I said, for example, okay, you're telling me that teenagers are supposed to separate from their parents and have increased independence, and they like to hang out in their rooms a lot with the door closed. So how do I know if my adolescent is in their room because they're a teenager and they want independence, or if they're in their room because they're depressed or there's, some other reason when maybe I should be worried and should try to figure out what to do to intervene somehow. So she gave what I think is a really handy guidepost on this. She said that it's the job of adolescents to grow, and by grow she means developmentally grow in these 7 different dimensions that she's laid out. And so she said, we want to see adolescents developing intellectually, developing socially, developing the social skills, increasing ability to care for themselves, starting to plan for the future, starting to handle their emotions better, all these things. And she said if we see them continuing to grow along these various dimensions, then that's good. That's what we're looking for. And if we see them stopping to grow, hey Nicole, thanks for joining. If we see that along one or more of these dimensions their growth has kind of stalled, then that's when we would be concerned and maybe look into it further, find some help, whatever. And so that's kind of how clinically they look at this. So I thought that was really a useful guidepost, to think about if my teens are growing and developing along the different dimensions, then I probably shouldn't worry too much. And if I'm seeing development stopping or stalling, then that's a good time to be concerned and look into that some more. Another thing I learned from Lisa, and I don't think this is actually in the episode. I was looking through the transcript and I couldn't find it, so I think I must have seen it in one of the interviews she did, or maybe one of her New York Times articles. She writes a column monthly for the Times, which, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to check that out. And she just released her second book, which is about stress and anxiety in teenage girls, and it's called Under Pressure. So she was busy around the time that she talked to me and this came out, very busy with her book launch activities, and I was so glad that she took a few minutes to talk with me, or more than a few minutes, actually. I think we talked for almost an hour. Anyway, she said that she likes to put the word stinks and the word handle together when talking with kids, teenagers. And what she meant was this: if there's some kind of situation that's tough, something that the kid, maybe isn't sure how to handle, something they're complaining is unfair or something, she likes to pair stinks and handle. And so she means, like, the first thing is that really stinks. And followed by, I think this is in the category of things you can handle. And so it's sending the message then that you're empathizing with whatever the situation is, whatever the problem the kid is struggling with. Yeah, it stinks. And then you're following that up with not, it stinks and you can't handle this, so I need to fix it for you, or, those kinds of things. But, that vote of confidence that this is in the category of things you can handle, and I can coach you and I can support you and so forth and so on, as needed. So I often pull that out, depending on what's going on. I think, okay, Lisa would say stinks and handle, so let me see how I can apply that here. So hopefully that little tip might be useful to you at some point. Lisa and I talked about so many other really interesting things. We kind of went through these 7 developmental strands that she identified, talked about each one, what some examples look like, to help people understand. And like I said, I found myself really understanding adolescence better. Another thing she said, the word teenager is kind of a misnomer, that the word tends to lead us to think that teenagerhood starts at age 13, and that before that you're not really a teenager, or maybe you're sort of a preteen, maybe you're kind of a kid. And she said actually the word adolescent is a little better description, because they've found that adolescence really starts more around 5th grade, 6th grade, certainly by 7th grade, by kind of capturing some of those years before the number actually turns to 13, that developmentally you start to see a lot of these developmental strands starting to happen around that time, 11 or 12. So anyway, again, it's episode 13. I've heard from a lot of friends and other people I've heard from a lot of people who are widowed that they found this episode particularly useful, but I've also heard from a lot of people who are not widowed, but who have adolescents, that they also found the episode useful. So I would encourage people, not just widowed parents, that this particular episode you may find interesting. Again, it's episode 13, and I'm glad I could pop over here and share with you today some of what I learned from Dr. Lisa Damour. I learned so much more, and again, the whole discussion is available to listen to at my podcast, widowedparentpodcast.com, and it's episode 13. And, and I'll be back tomorrow with the 4th thing that I've learned from hosting the podcast so far. But if you want to jump ahead and read all of them now, or just have a refresher or something to print or whatever, you can download the whole thing at jennylisk.com/top10 It's just a PDF file, so it's super easy to download and read on your computer or print or what have you. So I think that's all for now, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Hope you're having a good Friday. I guess it's Friday evening for some of you. It's still only 3:45 here, so got a little more time to go. But anyway, I think that's all. See you tomorrow. Bye.